Battlefield 6 really exposes a huge problem we have with multiplayer gaming right now, and it's that it's impossible to judge these games accurately on its release, which it leads to games unfortunately failing, and players having perceptions about games that just don't hold true over time. So in this video, we have to talk about how Battlefield specifically highlights this problem, and if there's any way to fix it. So Battlefield as a franchise has had this issue from my experience since BF3, and it has gone through this arduous cycle ever since. That cycle is game launches, and usually in a broken state full of bugs and glitches. Then reviews start coming out, and reviewers are crapping all over the game, which will probably detract anyone that could be interested into getting into the franchise. And then after about a year of updates, you essentially have a completely different product from what it launched as, which is exactly what we're going through with almost every multiplayer game I can think of right now. I mean, look at Battlefield, Marathon, NBA The Run, pretty much any multiplayer game you can think of. But I wanted to highlight the Battlefield franchise because it's the one I'm the most familiar with, and it has a large audience that knows this cycle all too well.
Oh shit, here we go again.
I'm going to use Battlefield 4 as the example of how a multiplayer game launches from a bad game, then turns itself around, and you'll see exactly how this issue persists. Battlefield 4's launch was a complete disaster, with many players reporting the game doesn't work, constant crashes, reviews crapping all over EA and DICE, and rightfully so. It was all around just a bad time, and I wonder how many more players Battlefield 4 could have had if the game launched in a proper state. Fast forward to a year later, and I'll be the first to tell you that Battlefield 4 is my favorite game in the franchise.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Now, the good thing about games going from bad to good is that the core player base will see that growth, and maybe even through word of mouth, players will come back, or maybe even possibly a group of new players could come and slide in and see what the game is about, keeping the buzz around. But there's still the question. How would a casual gamer look at a game like that? Because you see, the biggest review channels are not going to wait a year until the game has gone through all of its updates and give it a different score, because they've already moved on. So there still is an issue with my Battlefield 4 example. You see, back when Battlefield 4 launched, the FPS and shooter genre wasn't nearly as crowded with great options as it is now. And if a studio launches a game and comes out to a negative response, while another game comes out with glowing reviews and your homies hyping it up, your game is fighting an incredibly difficult uphill battle. And that leads me to Battlefield 6. You see, Battlefield 6 launched, and it had a lot of hype last year. It was looking good, especially with that great beta. But there was one main issue that players wanted DICE to look at before the launch of the game, and it was the size of the maps. Then BF6 launched, and it actually had a good launch, especially compared to past EA and DICE games, but the player base was still waiting and pleading with DICE for larger maps. Then, before you know it, this little $40 game called Arc Raiders comes out and steals almost all the glory, and now DICE is looking crazy like, damn, we really just lost 80% of our player base, and they will probably never see numbers like that again. But then again, months pass, and now people are talking about how Arc Raiders is falling off, and BF6 is having this resurgence. So that begs the question, how does someone judge these multiplayer games? Well, if I'm honest, it's just going to take you taking a chance and enjoying the game as much as you can, while you can. Damn, nigga, that's not very reassuring. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, that might be a cop-out answer. But multiplayer games as a whole are just extremely volatile right now, with updates that can make or break a game. And unless you follow a dedicated channel to that game, a new casual gamer is probably not going to be in the loop, or are going to be willing to wait months or years worth of updates for the game to turn into something great. But I do believe that studios and publishers can do better in these aspects to prevent multiplayer games from falling into this cycle over and over again. The first thing publishers can do is not be afraid to push your game's launch back just a little bit. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot that goes with that, so it's not just as simple as telling a publisher, hey, give us 2 extra months. But I do believe that everyone involved, including the publishers, would be better off allowing a game to release with as much content and polish as possible, and then continuing to grow the game from there. My example for this is NBA The Run. The studio recently announced all this content content coming to the game. And in my opinion, most of it should have been in the game at launch. And I believe if the game launched with the campaign mode, then even more people would have been excited for the game. Because now, although the initial response to the game is good, it could have been a whole lot better if there was more content at launch besides just the 2 multiplayer modes. And the last thing publishers could do is having proper updates that address real problems in the game first, and then adding cool content later. Helldivers 2 fits the bill for this one, because I really enjoyed Helldivers 2 at the start, even though it had a lot of bugs and glitches. But after each cool update, I'd see that I would start running into the same bugs and glitches as before, and it just started to become a bit of an annoyance for me with the game. It's like, yeah, you're adding this cool stuff, but I'm still falling through the map, and it's just kind of killing the fun for me. I'm not gonna lie. It just started to, at least. Now that I pissed off the Helldivers community, I think I am going to wrap this video up for y'all. Let me know what multiplayer game you are playing or you played in the past that has completely changed for the better since its launch. But with that said, I'm gonna hop in my Franks and fly on up out of here, y'all. Peace.